Hello and welcome to our last section of chemistry, chapter 18.5 on biochemistry. And biochemistry or bioorganic chemistry is a gigantic field because it's a chemistry that affects life, the chemistry that affects us. And it is a huge part of study if you're going to be something like a nutritionist or a dietitian, a doctor, nurse, etc. And let's get started right away because this is kind of a big section. I want to get through it today. Biochemistry studies four main things that make up our bodies: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Carbs, lipids, and proteins, at least, these are our macronutrients. The things that we need to intake in abundance in order to survive. And some of us don't intake a balance of these. Some of us like these carbohydrates, for instance. I love carbs, I will admit. And nucleic acids are not something we necessarily eat a lot of, but they make up our DNA. And we're going to talk about them. They're a main living component as well. So let's go and start off with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates provide the energy for most living things. They are made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a ratio of about 1 to 2 to 1. So consider if you have a carbohydrate, odds are that you're going to deal with something that probably looks something like this. And I'm going to get my chemistry here going. Good. And so that's a very simple carbohydrate. Oops, forgot about these guys. There you go. And if you look, the carbons are chemically balanced. The carbon needs 4 bonds. It has 4 bonds, 1, 2, 3, 4. This carbon has 4 bonds, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oxygen is going to need 2 bonds. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hydrogen only needs 1. Please do not double bond hydrogen on this test. I think I'll have a stroke after 18 chapters of not double bonding hydrogen. But these are this is a good carbohydrate. It has a good amount of carbon, good amount of oxygen, and roughly twice the amount of hydrogen that there is carbon and oxygen. And this ratio can vary just a little bit. For instance, in mine, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hydrogen, and just 3 carbon and oxygen. I guess if I wanted a perfect ratio, I could make something a double bond and take away hydrogen. Now it's a perfect carbohydrate. But anyway, they provide energy is the main deal. Sugars, monosaccharides, simple sugars, 1 ring of atoms per molecule. It's a ring of sugars. Glucose, example of this, C6H12O6. You see there's double the amount of hydrogen than carbon and oxygen. Glucose is the main ingredient of honey. It is produced by green plants through photosynthesis. Take carbon dioxide, take hydrogen, create glucose and oxygen. That's how plants do their thing. And a monosaccharide is a very simple sugar. You're going to digest it easy. Think pixie stick. You give a pixie stick to a kindergartner, he's going to be wired in about 10 minutes. But if you give him some vegetables, he's going to be, progressively more and more wired all day. Why? Because pixie stick is a simple sugar, whereas a vegetable is a polysaccharide or a complex sugar. Lipids. Lipids are a biological group of compounds which are insoluble in water, fats, and oils. And they are used in the body to store energy. I have a lot of energy storage in my body. Your body is very greedy as far as energy goes. It doesn't like to waste, so it stores everything. It needs to build cells. It needs to transfer hormones or chemical messages. All of your hormones are made out of fats. So particularly if you don't eat enough fats, you actually are pretty hormonal because your hormones are all out of whack. Fatty acids, simplest lipid molecules. These fatty acids are a rod of carbon and hydrogen linked by a carboxyl handle. Fats are larger. This is 3 fatty acids, so take a look at this. It's 1 fatty acid, 2 fatty acids, 3 fatty acids. And this makes up a fat. Oils are fats too, except oils are liquid at room temperature. And so, I think to another class, it might have been you guys, brought out some fats. This is my movie theater popping oil. This is a solid fat. It's just all fat. If I look at the nutrition guide, fat, 14 grams. Everything else, 0. It's fat. And I have also one over there that's a liquid. That's an oil, but still fat. It's all fat. Classification of fats: there's saturated fats, solid at room temperature. Hydrogens are connected to as many hydrogens as possible. So if you look at the chemistry, it looks like this. Carbon, carbon, carbon connected to a hydrogen. No double bonds. No double bonds. As many hydrogen as possible. That's a saturated fat. These usually go on for a long time. Whereas an unsaturated fat has at least 1 double bond. So consider something like this. This is an unsaturated fat. And it has 1 double bond. It would be called a monounsaturated fat because it has a mono 1 double bond. If we were to make it a polyunsaturated fat, we'd add in a 2nd double bond, and of course you'd have to take away some stuff. Sorry, I'm not too good with a mouse. So, polyunsaturated are the most healthy for your body. Consider fish oil, olive oil, peanut oil, peanut butter, certain types of nuts. These are all polyunsaturated fats. What they're thought to do is they're actually thought to be like a boomerang in your heart. And so it goes around your vessels. It's like, it's shaped like this because of its double bonds, whereas saturated fats are just linear. And any saturated fat the polyunsaturated fat comes across, it like rips from the wall of the artery. It's very helpful. And so that's why they say you can take your omega-3 fats. You can buy like Walmart. Nucleic acids form the blueprints of the guide to the cell. Plans are passed from one another during cell division. DNA, also known as deoxyribonucleic acid, determined from the moment of conception, the moment sperm hits egg, the cell, that first cell, called a zygote, knows your gender, your height, build, hair color, eye color, skin color, everything. It has 46 chromosomes that detail every last thing about you. Now, of course, you can change yourself kind of in a sense. For instance, if you're supposed to be 6 foot tall, but don't get enough food and are malnourished, you're going to be a lot shorter than that. It's not the DNA that messed up. It's somebody feeding you. But anyway, that's one of the reasons why I am pro-life, by the way, is people who have an abortion will say something like, no, it's not a person yet. And yet, it is a unique genetic combination, that cell, that is totally unlike any human being that's ever walked the earth. And it has everything it needs for life. You just need to give it time. And so anyway, that's a little tangent there. DNA has 23 pairs, 46 molecules. Some people have a little bit more or a little bit less. For instance, people with Down syndrome have 47 molecules. Down syndrome is known as trisomy 21. They have 3 21st chromosomes. Some people have conditions like Klinefelter syndrome or Jacobson syndrome, where they have multiple of certain things or less than one. But for the most part, all of us have 46 molecules of DNA. If you don't, odds are you won't be able to have any kids. And all these 46 molecules explain your genetic information. You got tons of copies. Central dogma of molecular biology. You're going to want to write this on your paper. It says that life flows from DNA to RNA to proteins. And so your DNA makes RNA, which makes proteins. I've used this illustration before. DNA is kind of like blueprints. Wow, this is really laborious to write with the mouse. DNA is like a blueprint to a house. RNA is like a contractor. CTOR. Whereas a protein is like a worker. So if you're building a house, you have the blueprints. The blueprints explain everything. What type of wood to use, how large it should be, how high the ceiling should be, where to put in the closets, whatever. RNA is like the contractor. It's a subsection of DNA. That's a shortened version. He just knows what to do with his stuff. And so it's like a master electrician. He runs all the electrical stuff in the house, or at least he sees it, and the proteins actually get the work done. So protein would be like the, hired hand of the electrician, the roofer, etc. Proteins actually don't know nearly as much as the DNA. Odds are, and I was a roofer for 4 years before I became a teacher. And I've never seen a blueprint to a house while roofing. I just nailed stuff and and laid tile. My contractor really didn't even see all that much of the blueprint because he just knows what to do. All right, let's continue on. DNA is a double helix twisted ladder. Gene is a segment of DNA. The rungs of DNA here are made of guanine, cytosine, adenine, and thymine. I think that's a bonus on your test, if I'm not mistaken. And they make you who you are, a combination of 4 letters of a genetic code. If you have, let's say, if you can curl your tongue, right, like that, maybe you have an adenine in a certain place that others who can't curl their tongue have a thymine. And it's a variation in DNA. No one is necessarily superior, though I think curling a tongue is kind of cool. Both of them are genetically a option for your genetic code to have. RNA, ribonucleic acid, is just a working half unit of DNA. And I think this is the last slide. I got to move fast because I only have 15 minutes. Trapping energy. Your body uses ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, to trap the energy through cellular respiration. After ATP, ADP is left over, which can be recycled into ATP very easily by some food you eat. ATP fuels everything in your body. Metabolism is the process by which the body uses energy from food. So if you eat a lot of food, your body's going to break that down over time. If you have a high metabolism, odds are you're skinny, but your body's very inefficient. Kind of strange. If you have a low metabolism, you can say that my body's just being efficient. That's why I'm overweight. But anyway, You have section reviews to do. I gotta end. I will see you guys later. Thanks for this.